Anyway, I think we're onto something which is about how fast, how quickly open source products are iterated upon. And it speaks to the fourth myth, which is, and I get this from clients all the time, is that is WordPress going to be secure? Or is this open source technology that you're proposing, is it safe? Because if it's actually out there for people to look under the hood, aren't there many vulnerabilities? And I think that's an easy answer to overcome, or an easy answer to get to. Like, tell us about WordPress and how it handles security.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, okay, when you know that there's a WordPress security hole,
Right.
what do we do?
Oh, you submit a bug to WordPress.
Yeah, and how long does it usually take before they have an update?
Security flaws? Maybe a week.
Hardly even a week too. I think usually I've heard announcements where like we found a hole and like within 2 or 3 days they're going to update.
A patch or an update.
And before that happens, there's a flurry of people saying, here's how you do it. Prior to this patch being released is go into the code, change this line, do this,
Yeah.
these permissions this way.
Yeah.
You know, that's all out there as soon as it's
So I
discovered.
can't imagine that a Microsoft product would have that kind of
No.
response time.
I think what I find really interesting too is that in general, you know, a lot of people have these concerns about the kind of safety and security of open source products, but from my experience, I found them to be more secure than a lot of products that you wind up paying for. And again, it just comes back to that number of eyes on the code base. You know, when you've got, you know, potentially 1 million people out there looking at your code base and working on it on a regular basis, you know, no company, you know, except for maybe Google, is really going to be able to kind of come close to that just in terms of the sheer volume of people looking at the code. And, you know, when you've got that amount of people looking at something and working on it, you know, you're going to find those holes and you're going to find them quick and probably get them fixed really quick.
Yeah, so. And that's the argument people give is, well, everybody can see the code, so they know how to exploit it.
Yes.
But because of that, those exploits are always being fixed, and the quality gets better and better, as opposed to like security through obscurity, where you may not be able to get to the code, but through kind of probing and some reverse engineering, you can just walk right in.
And it just doesn't even happen that often. I think in the 3 years that I've been making WordPress websites, one site I know was hacked into, and someone put like a JavaScript into the uploads folder of WordPress, and it was because it was a really old version of WordPress and we forgot to update it, and incredibly easy to fix. You just turf out that little program that someone had uploaded and then just update, and then no one can get in again. So
well, it's interesting. I know I've had a number of experiences with servers getting hacked, and I know from my experiences having you know, we'll call them security violations with your sites, it's almost always been from the server end. A lot of times it has nothing to do with you know, the actual website technology you're using. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of clients and people who aren't that knowledgeable don't get, is that especially on the internet, there's so many layers of technology that, you know, have the potential for openings, you know, or security holes. So, you know, necessarily saying that, you know, all security flaws are directly caused by the technology you're using for your website is, you know, kind of a gross generalization in a way. So.
myth number 5.
That you can't make money from open source.
This one is the one that I still don't know if I have a clear answer for. The verdict is still out. Can you make money from open source technology?
The thing I was thinking about this was that, like, how much money is right? Because can corporations make enough money to supporting a corporation? Well, that might be more difficult, but on a smaller scale, if you don't go corporate,
or a longer term scale,
or
the long tail.
Yeah, then there's a lot of opportunities for money to be made, but it might not be measured in the millions or billions, but it might be be measured on, you know, individual programmers or small companies who are able to create products or, you know, use parts of open source projects and make enough money to support themselves. And maybe we all haven't heard of them, but I think if it's not happening on a big scale now, I think like the open source community is not going to stop, right? So if this is the one problem we need to figure out, like the open source community can figure out how to make money because we've been figuring out how to fix all these other problems before.
Yes.
I think MySQL is a perfect example of this, and they talked about it in some of the reading that I was doing today. And you know, their philosophy is, they call it quid pro quo, and basically their idea is that, you know, they find inherent value in the contributions that they get from the community.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, you know, selling a product and getting paid for that product, but they find kind of value in the contributions that they receive back. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, that, you know, there's a lot more in terms of value that you can get out of something than just the money that you receive for doing it.
They do make a lot of money though too. Like they,
Yes, yeah.
for certification, there's a couple different facets, and it's very interesting because MySQL is released under the general public license, which is one of the very strictly kind of copyleft, you know, Richard Stallman open source, and we can go into that later, but they do allow, this is part of the quid pro quo, they do allow MySQL to be used in a proprietary software release, but you have to pay, right? So that's the quid pro quo. If you're going to use it the way we use it, you don't have to pay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if you're going to use it to make money, you're giving us money.
That sounds fair to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, MySQL also it looks like they found a real opportunity, because the only company out there that was even coming close was Oracle.
Yeah.
That was doing enterprise level databases, and they just came in, and it didn't even take them that long. I think it was only about 2 or 3 years before like the whole internet turned to MySQL.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, really, part of that was in part to do with just the cost, the initial cost. Like, just to set yourself up with an Oracle database was not a cheap solution.
Oh no.
You know, it was
It
something
wasn't
that
at
was
all.
fairly costly, and you had to have people who had a lot of expertise to kind of
Yeah.
be able to work with it, and it set the bar really high, you know,
Yeah.
for someone who's just coming in and, you know, they want to set up a fairly small scale, you know, database driven site. You know, Oracle was not really the best choice, and I think by kind of setting the bar so high at a very kind of enterprise oriented level, they almost kind of phased themselves out of the market in a way. Whereas MySQL took the almost kind of polar opposite approach, was they kind of built it from the everyman up.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, like you said,